fatty liver. I mean, they're just a mess. They're breaking down like earlier than they should. But if you eat normal, so if you're eating like a healthy diet that's not high fat, high sugar, you're not necessarily going to gain more fat. You don't become type 2 diabetic and all that if you're not eating all the crap. So you're probably just going to be okay. But if you take that same mouse who's eating a healthy diet and you make it eat within a time-restricted window of at least 12 hours, actually the best was 9 to 10, they gain way more muscle mass. This is on a normal diet, just way more muscle mass. And if they ate within a 9-hour window, they had like a really improved endurance. That's something I've noticed in myself. If I eat within a 9-hour window and I go for a run the next morning, my endurance is like very noticeably improved, like extremely noticeably improved.
So do you have like a timer? Like how do you time yourself at the beginning of your day, like when you first eat, and then?
Yeah, so I typically, my friend Kevin Rose has an app that like, it's called, Kevin Rose has an app.
Kevin Rose from Dig?
Yeah.
I've had him on. Love that guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a big ketogenic diet proponent as well.
Yeah, he doesn't actually do keto anymore because
when did he stop?
After he got a bunch of blood work done, and I mean, there's different genes that people have that can affect the way they respond to that sort of diet. Most of the time, people can respond good, but
that's interesting because he was on here just wasn't that long ago. Introducing Zero, a new app to help you fast.
So he has an app that helps you do that actually works really well. Personally, what I do is I'm just kind of crazy about it, and I just like remember it that day. So I'm like, okay, I had my first cup of coffee at 8 a.m. But his app actually is really cool because it really helps you keep track, and it sends you reminders. So like helps you, and it's a free app. So
powerful, Kevin Rose.
Anyways, it's really cool because you can just like literally these mice were gaining more muscle mass just not by doing anything, but eating within this time restricted window. And the thing that was also very interesting about this was that you could cheat a couple of days a week. So they could like let's say weekends when you have like social events and you're like out drinking or whatever, you can cheat 2 nights and still have the same benefits. So that, at least in mice. We don't know if that's the same for humans. Sachin's trying to aggregate some data with humans. He actually has an ongoing trial that anyone can sign up for. It's called My Circadian Clock. And it's also an app on the phone that you just basically all you do is like sign a consent form, take pictures of your food, and like allow certain data, different fitness data for them to collect. And so they're doing this clinical study with humans from data that they're aggregating, which is kind of cool.
I'm getting his fasting tracker right now. Bam.
Yeah, and he has different options for Kevin's fasting. It's like the circadian option, which is the one I'm talking about. And then there's like people that are doing intermittent fasting. And
what's the circadian option?
That's the time restricted eating. That's just basically circadian is the circadian clock you're on.
Right.
So that's what it's this 24-hour cycle, day-night cycle. So eating within at least a 12-hour window is
so 12-hour is the most you ever want.
Most.
So if you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's when you have your first cup of coffee. That's when it starts, not with food.
It starts with first cup of coffee.
Because that's interesting because a lot of people don't think that. They think that they're still fasting. Right. They have a cup of coffee and then they go run.
That's the thing. So because coffee, even if it's black, so people think if they have black coffee, they're fasting and they go run. But black coffee caffeine is a xenobiotic. It's something that has to be metabolized by liver enzymes. Your gut processes it. So anything that
other than water.
Exactly. Anything other than water. And the same goes for like taking vitamin pills or drinking herbal tea late at night. Like the same thing goes.
Even herbal tea.
Herbal tea is also got herb stuff in it. So
non-caffeinated herbal tea, like
yeah, because those are xenobiotics. Chamomile. I mean, that stuff's got to be processed by your liver, your gut. It's not water.
Right.
So I mean, and this is something that's kind of a big question, and that is, well, if the fasting, let's say you're eating within a like 9-hour window or 10-hour window.
9 hours optimal. 9
hours is really what I found to be optimal for endurance. In terms of the animal studies, like 10 hours also, eating their healthy diet within 10 hours, they still had they increased their lean muscle mass. They didn't have to do anything else. No extra exercising. It just because what was happening is they were basically their mitochondria were working better, and they were also getting rid of fat easier. So so it increased their lean muscle mass.
That's incredible because I eat late at night all the time.
Well, you're a comedian.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably you eat after a show.
Yeah, I came home last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, pigged out after a show. I mean, it was healthy food. I ate like kefir and pistachio nuts. I buy those big jugs of shelled pistachios, so the shells are removed, so I just eat like piles of pistachios. I feel like I'm not eating anything bad. That's good for you. But this knowledge now, knowing this, I'm gonna cut that out now.
Please let me know how that goes.
I'm gonna start right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like I said, you can cheat. There was cheating at least twice a week was okay.
2 times a week is a good cheat.
And that's kind of cool because it's like a weekend, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you have your social event. It's hard to do with social events and stuff if you have like something late and you kind of have to fast all early in the morning all the way up until you can do it later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I do a lot of workouts fasted now. And one of the things that I like to do is I get up in the morning without having anything and then I work out. But I've been having coffee. So I thought I was fasting.
Well, see, the thing is, and this is kind of what I was talking with Sachin about, is that if you're fasting itself, the fasting itself is having a positive effect on all these enzymes. So maybe there's some sort of cancelization out. It's not
as good.
It's not as good, I would say.
So just water.
We don't have actual empirical data on that saying, okay, well, and that's something that Sachin would like to look at in humans because it's like a big question. If you are just fasting, in theory, it's not. You're starting all those clocks. The caffeine starts the clocks. That's known. So, but then again, like I said, fasting changes your metabolism in a way too that makes it better. So maybe it's not quite as bad.
Not quite as bad, but not optimal.
Exactly. I like that. That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So shoot for 9 hours.
That was like that. 9 hours is the best, especially for endurance like enhancements. Like, really.
So if you get up and you're at, if you're up at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, you almost have to eat dinner like at 5.
Yeah, that's the problem. You have to either fast in the morning or you have to eat early, which is really hard for working people.
9 to 5ers, I mean, it's like you're eating breakfast before you go to work, unless you're not.
Right, and that's kind of the problem for people that are going, so
which is most humans.
Yeah, we have it, life is kind of different now, but it's, there are people that we're talking about, they just take their breakfast to work and they'll wait till like 10 o'clock to eat or something like that.
Yeah.
Because also there's people that like to go to the gym after work, and so there's more time. It's like, you gotta race this clock, well, I gotta eat, so really, if you can start the clock later, if that's possible, for people that are working like that don't have flexible hours, then it'd be better to start the clock later. And there's a lot of human data on this, like just looking at like the associations between people that eat within, an 11-hour period and fast for 13 hours. For example, women that do that have already had breast cancer, they reduce their breast cancer risk recurrence by like 40%.
Wow.
Yeah, because it lowers, it causes insulin sensitivity. It lowers like IGF-1 levels. I mean, it's just like it lowers all these like hormones and things that are known to promote cancer growth. It's really a powerful thing and improves metabolism. Really improves metabolism, and that's something that a couple of scientists that I've talked to that are at UCSD are looking at and actively seeing. That it seems to be really important. Now, obviously, people doing shift work like nurses are kind of, that's the problem.
Yeah, they're kind of fucked when you're doing that late shift stuff.
And they are. They have twice the cancer incidence. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Twice. Wow.
Shift workers, they're also much more likely to be type 2 diabetic. It's because you're eating like when you're at night, you're eating, your metabolism is all screwed up. Not only are you like, when you're eating after the 12-hour clock, are you not as insulin sensitive, and so your blood glucose levels are higher. Also, you're confusing your clock. So kind of like it says, okay, I'm restarting now because it's late. I'm getting my first signal in. It's been after 12 hours, and it confuses it. So then when you go to sleep, say you eat at 2 in the morning, you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and you have your meal, it's already going to have started that clock a while ago. So you won't be as insulin sensitive because the earlier in the day, the more insulin sensitive you are. So you know what I mean? So you're kind of like confusing the clock.
Right.
It's like this, a very complicated, but I think important mechanism and system for people to understand. And time restricted eating, like I've really implemented that because I think that's something that also will affect the aging process. I've talked to people like at conferences I've given a talk at that have come up to me afterwards, and they're talking about how they've been on a ketogenic diet for 2 years and how they've reversed their type 2 diabetes. It's been great, but still their fasting blood glucose levels were still on the high end. Even though they're no longer type 2 diabetic, which is really good. And they started doing the time restricted eating where they were eating within a 9-hour window, and it completely resolved it. And I've actually had multiple people tell me that. And so,
insane. And the amazing thing is the increasing muscle.
The muscle is really the interesting part. I would like to talk to Sachin more about that and have him do more experiments if possible, because we didn't dive as much into that on the podcast when we chatted. But he is such a phenomenal scientist, and he's very proactive into health and all this, preventative medicine, and he's just a great person.
Where's he out of?
The Salk Institute in La Jolla. Very prestigious place to be. There's a lot of really good scientists there.
One of the things that I found when I was eating a lot of bread and pasta is that I would have a good meal. Like say I would have like chicken with maybe some vegetables or something like that, a nice big healthy meal, and I would still be hungry afterwards for sugar. I would my body, I was stuffed. Like I ate like a half a chicken. I'll eat a half a chicken, and my body was like, there was some gut bacteria craving, and that's what it seemed like. It seemed like some bizarre craving. It wasn't a craving like I needed more calories.
Were you eating these at this? Was this? Would you typically eat something with refined sugar?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, something. This is an interesting effect, and sorry if I cut you off, but
okay.
Something that does happen when you eat refined sugars, like something not a piece of fruit, which has the fiber matrix and all these polyphenols. By the way, polyphenols are plant insecticides. That's all we were talking about. There's all this other good stuff. When you take the refined sugar away from that, what happens is when your gut digests it, and refined sugar usually is like a glucose. It's 50% glucose and 50% fructose, and that's sucrose, and that's what's in table sugar. It's what's in a lot of refined sugars. What happens is that when you cleave the sucrose you cleave the sucrose to this glucose and the fructose itself doesn't get absorbed by all the cells. It only gets metabolized in the liver, and it does something that's called ATP trapping. So what it does is it traps ATP, which is the source of energy, and it does this because it's trying to do this whole other complicated enzymatic reaction, blah blah blah, right? But what it does is trap the ATP, and this sends a signal through the vagal nerve to your brain. I don't have energy, and so you don't get satiated. And so when you eat refined sugars, and now this is independent from the gut bacteria craving stuff you're talking about. I'm not exactly sure how all that works, but what I'm talking about is real. It's ATP trapping, and it's something that is known to be a cause of why you can eat a bunch of fructose and refined sugar and not be satiated. And so you have to eat more because your brain thinks you haven't been fed because the ATP's been trapped. It's called ATP trapping.
Wow.
That's one possibility that could have been happening. It's also why a lot of people that eat a lot of refined sugars with sucrose or high fructose corn syrup is the worst. When they eat that,
Why is high fructose corn syrup the worst?
because then, when your gut, the way your gut, okay, let's compare table sugar, sucrose, to high fructose corn syrup. Both are bad. But when you compare the two, because sucrose it's got glucose and fructose. High fructose corn syrup does too. It has more fructose. But the thing is that when the sucrose sees your gut has something in it called sucrases, which it takes, basically it's slower to cleave and digest the sugar, so it's not like a big bolus that your gut sees. So it's not as irritating on the gut because it has to first, the sucrases have to cleave the sucrose, and so like all this stuff is happening. Whereas when you get the high fructose corn syrup, that doesn't happen. It's a big bolus, and it's like it literally like causes a breakdown in your gut barrier. It's like irritant. It's an irritant. The same thing can happen if you take like too much of. There's lots of other things that happen, but if you take too much like magnesium or something, people can get gut irritation. It's a big bolus on the gut, and it's irritant, and that's what high fructose corn syrup does. And there's also then the whole ATP trapping thing is like exponential with high fructose corn syrup because there's more fructose.
It's compounded. There's a bunch of different factors.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different factors. Of course, the fructose is very different in fruit because of the matrix, the fiber. It's digested differently. It's completely different than taking table sugar or high fructose corn syrup.
Who's the monster that extracted that stuff? I mean,
it's so bad.
When was that done? When did they figure out how to do that? I mean, they used to do cane sugar, right?
Was it World War II? I don't know. I know there's people that are super into all that stuff, but yeah, it's cheaper. That's why. It's cheaper and it's hidden. It's in everything. If you go out and go to a Chili's and think you're going to eat healthy, you order a salad and there's like 60 grams of sugar in their Waldorf salad because it's all in the dressing, high fructose corn syrup.
That's insane. Okay, here it is. The 1970s was first introduced to food and beverage industry. High fructose corn syrup was first introduced to the food and beverage industry in the 1970s. That's amazing that stuff from 1970 until today, so in the last 40 plus years, has become a massive part of our diet.
The average, this was published in, it was like the health organization in somewhere in the UK, whatever they call that. There's some health organization in UK that did a press release and said that the average 5-year-old consumes 50 grams of sugar a day.
Oh my God.
Sorry. Yeah, 50 grams. 50 grams a day or is it 50 grams a year? Yeah, no, 50 grams a day. It's 50 grams a day, which was their weight. It was okay. Awesome. Now I'm remembering. It was it would be awesome. It was 50 grams a day, which was the average of their entire body weight of a 5-year-old. A year.
So if you have a bag of sugar the size of a 5-year-old, that 5-year-old will eat that in a year.
Exactly.
Jesus.
And I did some calculations. It comes out to like a pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks, which has like 64 grams of sugar. It's crazy.
Oh,
and
everything. There's a particular type of gut bacteria that craves sugar and that thrives on sugar, though, isn't there?
Yeast are thriving on sugar, but they're not gut bacteria. There
was like a documentary, an online thing that I watched on the various documentary on different gut bacteria that attracted to.
So maybe this is, I know that, so that your gut bacteria, what they eat is fiber. And they're mostly in your colon. And so when you eat a fiber deficient diet, proteins, lipids, sugars are all absorbed in the upper intestine, but your bacteria in your gut starve. And in order to stop themselves from starving, they have to start to cannibalize the gut barrier that they live on because it's got carbohydrates. And so low fiber diet can cause massive gut, barrier breakdown. It's actually the most, in terms of magnitude, the most potent thing that regulates gut health is fiber.
So is that like irritable bowel syndrome, things along those lines?
Well, that can happen, but you don't have to have irritable bowel syndrome to have your gut barrier breaking down. You can have a low level of inflammation, not know it. But there are certain types of bacteria that can thrive in the condition. Now, maybe let's say you have a low fiber diet, meaning you're eating a lot of refined sugar. So it's kind of like the same, right? You're eating a bunch of refined sugar and in place of plants and fiber-rich food. There's a certain type of bacteria that can thrive on low fiber, and it's a type of bacteria that I don't know the name of, but they have little flagella, things that like move, you know? Little sperm, yeah, exactly like that. And so they'll like swim up. So your bacteria are supposed to be in the colon, the very, very end of your intestines, right? You're not supposed to have a bunch of bacteria in your small intestine. Well, they'll swim up to the small intestine because that's where the food, that's where the proteins and the sugars and the lipids are all getting absorbed. They'll swim up there. And this is often referred to as bacterial overgrowth. So small intestine bacterial overgrowth is what the technical term is. Bacterial overgrowth is actually when your bacteria are starting to grow in your small intestine. And what happens is when you have bacteria in your small intestine, it releases something called zonulin. And this work has all been done by Alessio Fasano, and I think he's at like Massachusetts Children's Hospital. Anyway, he discovered this. So